Hi everyone, Fenris Models here, and today we'll be taking a look at the 172nd U-2A Dragon Lady from HobbyBoss. Now, before any work began on this kit, the sprues were taken to the sink and gently washed with hand soap and warm water to remove any lingering mold release agent. This was allowed to dry, and then I could start in on the assembly. Each piece was removed from the sprue with a pair of sprue snips, leaving just a little bit of material that was then whittled down with a hobby blade, along with any mold lines, flash, or other unwanted bits of plastic. Once satisfied with the cleanup, the piece was physically placed on the instructions where the part shows up. I do this partially to help me keep track of where I am in the instructions, but primarily it's to ensure that I don't lose any pieces along the way. Assembly began with the cockpit. I was quite surprised that there were 7 pieces to the seat alone. This was then placed in the cockpit tub along with the control stick and the instrument panel. The tub was then set aside for painting. The whole of the cockpit received a coat of Vallejo Model Color Black, 70.950, and once dried, the seat itself received a coat of Model Air Wood, 71.077, to replicate the leather seat cushion. For the instrument panel, there was a single decal that would represent all of the dials. This was soaked in warm water to release from the backing paper and then slid into place. It did fight me a little and probably should have been applied before the instrument panel was put into the cockpit tub, but oh well. Once the cockpit was ready, it could be installed and sandwiched between the 2 fuselage halves, along with parts like the air brake and gear bay interiors and the engine. Next up was the wings and tail fixture. Each wing came in 2 parts, a top and a bottom, that needed cementing together. The tail fixture was 3 parts, 2 for the vertical fin and 1 that they would attach to once joined together. All 3 were then cemented in place on the fuselage. Next were some smaller pieces that I'm admittedly not too sure on what they are, but the air brake covers were also cemented in place at this time. And because I'm modeling this craft in flight, both they and the gear bays would be modeled closed. The engine air intakes were next, followed by the gear bay doors. The front gear bay did need some trimming of parts in order for the doors to be fitted shut. It's a little tricky, and I'm not too sure that HobbyBoss actually intends for this kit to be displayed in such a way, mainly because the bay doors do seem to be a little small for the opening. Last but not least were the stabilizers at the wingtips and the canopy. The canopy also needed masking before we can start painting. To accomplish this, I just applied a strip of Tamiya masking tape over the plastic, and using a toothpick I was able to get a contour of the shape of the mask. A fresh hobby blade was then used to cut away any excess tape. Now, my preferred method of painting is pre-shading. I know that black basing is common these days, and it certainly gives great results, but there's something about pre-shading that I just prefer aesthetically. Using the same black as before, I apply the lines messily but accurately to all of the panel lines, as well as any other places where shadows would gather. Once this was dry, the entire model received a coat of Vallejo Metal Color Silver, 77.724. I applied this layer lightly so as to allow some of the shading to come through on the model. And I'd like to address something relatedly here. Lately I've been hearing a bunch of people saying that pre-shading doesn't do anything, that you can't tell a difference, and I'd hope that my videos where I've used this technique almost every time would show otherwise, but further I'd really like to emphasize that you must apply the layers on top lightly. If you don't, you absolutely can block out the shadows and completely cancel the effect. So be light-handed here with these coats if you want your previous work to show through. I allow the silver to cure before masking off the places where the orange would next be applied. Using Model Air Orange 71.083, I filled in these sections with a smooth coat. And then Model Air White 71.001 was used on this section of the canopy. This masking was then removed, being careful not to remove the masking on the canopy windows for the upcoming varnishing stage. The model was taken outside for a coat of Tester's Wet Look Clear varnish before decaling. Gloss varnish is applied both to protect the paint layers we just worked on, but it's also there to provide a smoother surface for the decals. This aids in moving them around as well as helping to minimize silvering. As I was placing the decals, however, I began to notice an issue. Somehow, the varnish began to attack the orange paint. I don't exactly understand what happened here. This varnish is one I've used many a time before on the same line of paints. Perhaps it has something to do with this orange? I'm really unsure. And since I'd already begun applying decals, I was hesitant to strip the paint and start over. Luckily, as you'll see, most of these spots get covered by decals, but I am absolutely baffled as to what caused it. The remaining decals were applied, and all of the large decals received a coat of microsol to help them conform to the contours of the model. A sharp hobby blade was then used to score any panel lines the decal may be laying over. Using Tamiya panel liner accent color black, I traced along the panel lines to give them a little more depth. For some reason, the panel liner did not want to flow the way that it should, which made it necessary for me to paint it on instead of letting capillary action do all of the work. The excess panel liner was cleaned with a cotton bud, damp but not wet, with Artist's Odorless Spirits. I made sure to wipe in the direction of either airflow or gravity to give a faux weathered look to the still shiny panels. And then finally, we can remove those canopy masks and call this one complete. So there we go, the U-2A Dragon Lady from HobbyBoss in 1/72nd scale. Despite the issue with the varnish eating into the orange paint, I quite enjoyed this kit. It's a quick little build and for a very unique aircraft. It is a HobbyBoss kit, however, and it comes with all the trappings thereof. The detail is serviceable, but not amazing. The panel lines are relatively shallow and all but disappear during the painting stage. However, none of the above are deal breakers for me. For the price, I think you're definitely getting your money's worth. But what did you think? Did you like this build? Are any of those issues deal breakers for you? And do you have any idea whatsoever what caused that strange problem with my orange paint? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you to my gift set tiered patron Calibear and to all of my starter set patrons. Your support means the world to me. And thank you for watching. If you enjoy my content, please like and subscribe as well as leave a comment. All of that really does help small channels like ours here to grow. If you want to see more of my content, how about watching one of these two videos here? In the meantime, stay safe and keep modeling.